Good morning, everyone. Well, I'm back at my home base. I'll be here for a few days. I got to deal with my son on Wednesday this week. He couldn't do one of his appointments, so we've moved him. So I've got 2 or 3 days here, which is good because I can get caught up on my work with God. All right, I know that a lot of people, I see comments, are getting worried about AI and also the Antichrist. So we're going to talk at both of those today. The Antichrist I can basically put off and say, I don't think he's going to arrive until we're gone. But we have the possibility of the image of the beast, and that could be generated, computer generated. We see science fiction shows and other shows where they're using computer graphics all the time, CGI. So that's technology that we have now. Now, AI, artificial intelligence is what it stands for. They're hoping that there's no real intelligence out there because then you can buy into that. We are not at the stage yet where something can become self-aware. It's pure arrogance to think that we can create that. Now, we can create it science fiction, and they've done it a number of times. And they get actors to play. Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know, his famous line, "I'll be back." It was originally written that way. But he didn't think that that was right. He's going, if I'm a robot, I should say, "I will be back." And the writer insisted that he say, "I'll be back." And that's exactly the way it came out. He told Arnold, "I'm the writer, you're the actor. When you become the writer, you can say what you want." And Schwarzenegger said that he's so glad that he followed his instruction. Because right after it premiered, somebody stopped him on the street and said, say the line, say the line." What line? "I'll be back." So anyhow, artificial intelligence is not there yet. We can do a lot of simulation. We can do a lot of apparent intelligence. But that's just writing a program that's big enough to handle all the options. I don't know if any of, well, I've got some friends on here that are as old or older than I am. There was the very first computer game called Adventure. It was all text. And typically we played it on mainframes. I played it when I was at Stanford working there. And it was basically somebody had to write a program. It wasn't very big back then, probably in the K range, 200 to 300 K maybe. I don't remember now, but it's not very big. I think when its next generation came out, it was called Zork, and I think it took like 2 or 3 floppy disks, the big floppy disks, to install it. So it wasn't very big. But people would program it to respond to whatever you typed in. So they had to program every response for every action. There was no graphics. This was all text. They didn't have fancy computers back then to do this with. It was all text. You'd get a description. You are standing in an open field looking around at a forest around you. You can only go one direction, and that's to the north. So you type in "go north," and the next statement says, "You've entered the woods, you're looking around, you can go any direction you want, there's a stream to the right." You know, it's describing things because there's no pictures. And you say, walk, west. And there's a number of ways you could do it. You could say go west, walk west. They programmed all the responses in. They even programmed responses into things that wouldn't work. Now you see a rock, there's a rock by the river. Pick up the rock. The rock is too heavy, would be the response back. So you're not supposed to pick up the rock. you could say, after a while you get frustrated as you're trying. Somebody finally printed out a list of the commands that you could actually type in. And so you go through that and you still can't figure it out. So some people would actually cuss at the computer. You type in your cuss word, hit enter, and the computer would come back and say, adventurers don't use that kind of language. Somebody had to program that in, and somebody had to program all the cuss words into a little database so that it knew to look up. That's all that game was just a lot of programming to make sure that you took the little tour through there. Well, now we can add graphics, and we can have, billions of commands that you can put into these things. You can write a program really big. They claim Chat GBI, is that it? GBT is AI. It's not AI. It's just a big fancy program, and it's programmed by the devil, by the harlot. If you type in, print me a speech for Biden, it will give you a speech for Biden. If you say, print me a speech for Trump, it will refuse to do that. That's the problem that we're going to have. It is still a program. It's not thinking. A programmer had to think of all the different things that it would allow you to do and what it can't do, and program those into it. So they can program wokeness, they can program socialism into it, they can program hate into it. I forget the article. I tell you all the time, I can't remember this stuff if I don't write it down. I think for the first time a Christian was denied something, work or ability to do something, simply because of their faith. I know in Oregon you can't adopt if you're a Christian or don't agree fully with the woke mentality. We're getting there. But AI is intelligence. They're not self-thinking yet, and I don't know that we can actually make something self-thinking. That's in the realm of what God can do. And we're not anywhere near that. So I'm not worried about AI. I'm worried about programmers working for the devil, programming in responses to what we do and what we say. That's what I'm worried about. It tries to help me in Google when I try to look up something, and I don't get what I'm looking for. So I have to reword my question until I get closer to what I want, and then I get a list of things, and the ones at the top aren't what I want. It's what the programmers want me to have, but not what I want. So I have to look it up further. I've been relying on it quite a bit to help me do my lessons, because I can remember a verse in text, but I don't remember where it's at, so I'll type it in. I've gotten to where I can't fully trust Google anymore. I do have the program, a Bible program, on my laptop, and I will go into its search and type it in. And as long as it can find it, I don't use Google anymore for that. I don't trust it. That's where we're headed. We're not going to be able to trust the information that's out there. You can Google pretty much anything in the world that you want, and it will find you information. But as it decides to filter and not give you what you want, or to lie to you, ChatGPT has lied to people when they've asked it questions. That's the problem that we've got. It's not AI. It's people thinking that it's AI and that it's thinking, and that, oh, if it's thinking, it must be right. It's as right as the talking heads sitting there on the news telling you what's going on. They seem so sincere. They seem like they're telling the truth. That's their job, to represent what they're telling you as if it is the truth. But it's not. You listen to our press secretary. Just lie, lie, lie. And she's getting paid to do that. And to do it with a straight face. Practice the lies long enough. And sometimes I think these people do believe the lies. You listen to celebrities who only hear the lies. I had a frog on my tent. They're little tree frogs, little itty bitty things all over the place here. In the morning you can hear them. I can hear them. Very noisy. I can't record until sun's up. Once the sun's up, they go quiet. They're lunch for the birds, so they're not going to announce where they're at. But at nighttime, the birds don't fly like that. So again, it's possible that the image of the beast that's going to be displayed will be computer generated. And they may even give it human attributes where it seems to talk like a human. We've seen that already. But it's all programmed response. It's just they got so much more room and time to program than our early, and the computers back when I started, you had to use the mainframes because there was no PC. There was no phone. We had landlines. They were attached to the wall somewhere. They may have had a long cord, but they were attached to the wall. Now you can take your computer with you anywhere you go. And people are always walking around like this, not paying attention. What better way to brainwash the world than to have them doing that? And they collect information about you as well. That's why we were warned against TikTok. Because it's Chinese based and they're just pulling in all this information about us. Our school systems have put propaganda ahead of education. We're not capable of competing in the world anymore. China's on the moon right now. We're not. Boeing is having problems. Musk talked about it. He said they've switched from engineers to bean counters managing departments. People that have no idea. It's like having a cavalry officer, a leader of a bunch of horsemen who can't ride a horse. The engineers have no control. In fact, they're talked down. They're treated badly. But without them, they can't make a product. And they've have 2 plane crashes that are being investigated, and the government is mad. I don't want to say mad as hell, but that's kind of where they're at. That's the gist of it. That Boeing has let their company get to that stage. The government might ban them from flying if they don't fix their problems. They launched a Boeing space capsule, Starliner. It's up there docked now. They had one heck of a time getting it docked because the thrusters weren't working right. They're afraid to leave. They should have been gone already, and they're still up there. And all the scientists are saying, just send SpaceX up there to rescue them. And Boeing says, no, 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 we can't do that. They don't want to be embarrassed by letting Starlink, or not Starlink, but SpaceX go up there and do their job, which they got paid a lot of money to do. SpaceX is starting to get all the jobs now. But our country has basically put money ahead of technology, put propaganda ahead of technology and learning. We may not notice it. We're starting to notice it now in some of our technology, but it's all coming from overseas. It's coming from China. Most of our technology comes from China. And you know that the phone companies can turn your microphone on and listen to you anytime they want. They can turn your camera on anytime they want. They can do it remotely. They don't need to have you do that. That's why on my laptop there's a little hidden door that I can slide. If somebody could hack into my laptop, they could watch on my camera what I'm doing. So it has a little door you can slide. So make sure if you have a laptop, you keep that door closed, because somebody could theoretically hack in. All of our technology is at risk right now. Our power grids, they attempt to hack into them on a regular basis. At some point in time, they're probably going to hack in and shut them down if our government doesn't do it first. As I'm speaking, what time is it? Yeah, as I'm speaking, Burrow should be making landfall, or just already hit the land and starting to move inland in Texas. It's not as big as it was when it went through the Caribbean, but it's still hitting the land as a Category 1 hurricane. We're paying the price for our arrogance, our lack of God in what we do. Some schools are voting to put the Ten Commandments back up and start letting them read the Bible. They're going to be shut down soon. We have our election in November. I don't think we're going to get that far. We're not going to have an election anyway. Trump better be careful. And don't be out in public, and don't go to New York, frankly, or any other Democratic area. They don't want to give up their power base. It's going to get extremely frightening to the world. The more frightened you are, the better it will be for the Antichrist when he shows up. The more wars going on in the Middle East, the higher the fervor and the pitch of the war, the better it will be for the Antichrist when he shows up. Because he's going to bring peace. He's going to solve the problems, the technology problems. He'll solve all the problems, apparently. We know it's a phony peace, but there will be one long enough to build the temple. The Temple Mount doesn't belong to the Muslims. It doesn't belong to the Palestinians. Saudi Arabia and Egypt both know that. It's the Shiites that are using it for propaganda purposes. Gaza and Hamas, propaganda purposes. The billionaires that are funding all this chaos around the world. There's riots in the streets now in France after the election. The UK is going to have some too eventually, more than they've already had. There's going to be chaos everywhere. We're getting it a little bit here. It's not like the Black Lives Matter time, but we're getting close to having that again. And we've got so many bad guys that have entered this country, you're not going to want to leave your house. Now, what I'm worried about is those people like me who are on government assistance, Social Security. What happens if they shut that off? I have a very small pension. What happens if they shut that off? How would people eat? And they're shutting that down too. They're destroying farmland. They're destroying the ability to manufacture food. And they're doing it blindly, thinking that they're doing what's right. You watch any villain in a movie. One of my favorite Star Trek villains would be Ricardo Montalban, playing Khan. He said in an interview, playing a bad guy can be fun, And they never think that they're wrong. They never think that they're bad. They think they are doing the right thing. I'm sure that Hitler thought he was doing the right thing. Satan convinces people. He's got very persuasive arguments. If you don't have the protection of Christ, Satan can influence you too. So you best armor up. Accept Christ if you haven't. That's your only way to get through this. And then keep your armor on, because it's, original knights of the round table and all that. They didn't wear their armor when they went around, because they were, what's the term I'm looking for? They had a code of honor among knights, that if they're riding along without their armor on, and they met another knight from the other side, from their enemies, their enemy wouldn't kill them then, and they wouldn't kill their enemy then. They'd agree to meet tomorrow at noon and we'll have a fight. It could be a jousting fight, it could be just a plain sword fight, whatever, but they would schedule a time, and they would come back at that time. And just before they would have to be there, they would go get dressed in their armor. That stuff was heavy. They didn't wear it around, and it was also hot. They didn't wear it around all the time. Because the other person was trustworthy and honest. We're fighting an evil, evil devil who is not going to give you benefit of the doubt. He's not going to give you a break. If you go out without your armor on, he's not going to wait for you to put it on. So keep it on all the time. It's not heavy. You can test that by weighing yourself, and then get down and study the Bible and put your armor on, and then go back and get on the scale. You won't notice the difference. But as we get further and further into this, it's going to get worse and worse. That is the whole purpose of the rapture, is to keep us here doing our job, spreading the gospel till the last second. And then he's going to pull us out. Probably right when Satan's getting ready to pull the trigger of whatever it is. He might have even pulled the trigger and the projectile is in flight, and then boom, we're gone. God's in control. There's nothing happening down here that God doesn't know about, and if it's bad, he's allowing it. He's not making bad things happen. The devil's doing that. That's been his job all along. Because God can't do that, so he lets the devil. That's why he keeps him around. What other reason would he keep him around? He's the counter to God. If you don't want God, that's what you get. You get the devil in his ways. And you won't like him, because he doesn't care about you. He cares about his power. And if you're not going to worship him, you're making an example of you. I'm sure the first few Christians that refuse the mark of the beast, they're going to do something big. Put it on TV, show it around the world as they're assassinated, martyred. Just like the two witnesses. Leaving them in the street for 3 days so the whole world can see. And they're killed by the Antichrist. And the whole world celebrates because they've put up with them and their godly miracles. We're not exactly sure how much of that's going to happen and how long it's going to be. We don't get a full timeline. We just know that they're here. And they're here to wake the world up. But the world, just like Pharaoh, will harden their hearts. It's sad. That's what's coming. We won't see it. At least not from here. We may be sitting on a cloud looking down, but we're not going to be here. Don't let all this propaganda scare you. That's what it's designed for. If you're scared, they can do what they want to do. We lost so many liberties after 9/11 because people were scared. The government says, well, we have to come in and we have to put these laws in place to protect you after 9/11. That's why they can now listen on your phone without telling you. It's national security. Now, the average person, they're not going to do that because they don't care. They don't care that what we're doing. We're just going to be part of the sheep that get moved into the corral that they're going to kill eventually. But if you're big and involved, they might try to catch you on something. Be careful. Big Brother is looking. And 1984 was a long time ago. All right. Keep your armor on. It's about to get real. I don't know what's next. Nobody does. We've got the possibility of continuing small wars in the area. I don't see the Ezekiel war coming because the Ezekiel war does a lot of damage to Israel and that, and I don't see that right now. I see initially continued skirmishes. We may even get to the point where they put phase 2 in effect. Phase 1 is what they've been doing. I have a graphic that Bill Salas put together. I was watching him and Jimmy Evans on a show. They were actually in the studio, and he had a graphic, and I'll try to remember to put it up here and let you look at it and see what phase 1 is. When that's over, phase 2 is all-out war. Be ready. That's when the Antichrist shows up. We have to get out of here. So our time is very limited. This year, my guess is between now and the election, which is November, it'd be a good time for us to leave. I don't think we want to be here for what they're going to do. Till we meet in the clouds. God bless.